What really helps people grow in their faith? Exactly how does a person grow spiritually? Back to the Bible has conducted research surveying more than 200,000 people all over the globe, trying to answer these important questions. What we found is amazing. The evidence is overwhelming. People who engage their Bibles 4 days a week or more are likely to experience life transformation. This scientific evidence, peer-reviewed and published, provides academic institution verified proof of what the Bible has to say about itself and what my mom told me. Engage your Bible. It will change your life. So we got thinking, can we use modern technology to help churches and ministries' discipleship efforts? Is there a way that we can provide a tool for churches and ministries that will help meet the 21st century needs of the smartphone user? Yes, there is. We at Back to the Bible can create an app for Android and iPhones for your church or ministry that benefits users by helping them engage the Bible, sending personalized scripture when and where each user needs it most. This same app will have your name, logo, color scheme, and personalization, and it will allow you to send all of your own audio, video, print, and graphic content to all users or to groups of users within your app. And in addition to all of this, consider the possibilities of impact when we provide you with specific demographic and analytic information that helps you get to know the areas of life your users are struggling with, all while protecting the anonymity and the privacy of the individual user. Oh, there is one more thing. This is all completely free to you. Back to the Bible has a very different pricing model for our custom apps. We simply don't charge. Back to the Bible's mission is to lead people closer to Jesus through the transformative power of God's Word. We would never want cost to get in the way of helping people grow spiritually. Back to the Bible custom apps. www.bttbapps.com.
Hi, Carlos. Thanks for being with us today.
Hey, Jeremy, Dave. It's a pleasure to be with you guys.
With the time that we have, I'm just going to jump right into the conversation here. And we've known each other for a while, and just knowing where you're located in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and also what you do as a pastor, as a community leader. One of the conversations that we need to have when it comes to this topic of missional discipleship is, how do we disciple the neighborhood? How do we disciple the community? How do we come alongside and listen? And so one of the people, I was like, man, who do we bring into this conversation? And being at your church and watching how you're part of the town council and part of the life of this city, I'm like, man, we got to get Carlos into this conversation. So tell the viewers that might not know you, tell us a little bit about your city, your church, and your neighborhood, and with that, like the demographics, the kind of the economic makeup of where you're located.
Sure. Well, it's an honor to be here with all of you and for everyone watching as well. How it was mentioned, my name is Carlos, and I've been the senior pastor of my church for 2 years. Before that, I was the youth pastor for around 15 years. And one of our biggest things is just wanting to impact our city in any way that we can. The city of Elizabeth pretty much has around 130,000 people. 60% is from the Latino population, 20% African Americans, 15% white, and the rest you could bunch up in the other category. And for the most part, the average household is around 42,000. That's how much they make. And it's one of those things that personally, I was born and raised in this city, and I love my city. I'm totally devoted to pour out my life, every ounce, for the rest of my life here as well. So.
You've mentioned this idea of integration, just in the few words that you've mentioned here. This idea of not just your philosophy, at least, is not just about reaching the community, but integrating into the community. From your experience, how has this philosophy of integration, rather than just reaching, has shifted and changed your neighborhood and community?
Definitely, there's a really big difference between focusing and wanting to reach your community compared to integrating with your community. Through the years of us really rubbing lives with everyone in our community, without question, we've seen many people come to the Lord. Different aspects happen where we've been able to impact different pockets within our community as well. But I guess what I want to even share, one of the major things that personally, it had to start with me. My mindset had to change. And I felt like God spoke to me clearly, where I used to see my church, just everyone that was within the four walls of my building. And God spoke to me and said, Carlos, I've called you to be a pastor of your city. And it's a big mindset change. And all of a sudden, my church went from just having a couple hundred to having 130,000 people part of my congregation.
Right.
And yet they don't all know that they're part of my church, but little by little, and just it changes everything because it pretty much breaks down the walls and just everyone you see, whether walking to the corner store, you're going to the bank, everyone you see within your context is just pretty much someone in your church to minister to. And from that mindset change, the next step that personally had to happen was changing the culture within our church itself, because we were really, in a sense, like a fortress where we would just focus on trying to reach people from the outside, try to bring them within our building. And once they come to our building, if they don't stay, if they end up leaving, we feel like we've lost, or we're focused on closing the revolving door behind us. And the reality is we in a sense, we removed the revolving door.
Yeah.
We didn't want to be a fortress. We wanted to be a Christian community that's porous with the community, that they could come in and we could go out and our lives would be together. And our mission, in a sense, changed. Of course, we're there to win people for Christ, to disciple them. But the church was really focused and, of course, growing, adding people to come to our congregation. Our focus changed to creating opportunities for multiple touches in the community. We wanted to touch as many people as possible in the community and as often as possible. And just changing that focus, not only for myself, but for my leadership and the congregation as a whole, did a really big impact. And with that as well is trying to discern, how to touch the soul of your city, of your town, of your community. What are the things that you could really do to get into their lives. And as a church, we've done many things throughout the years. We've done things for senior citizens, for single parents. We host job fairs, health fairs. We recently just did training for the security license to be registered with the state at our church. We just want the community to come in and out. So many times they come in, they don't even realize it's a church, simply because we do so many things that, to a certain degree, is out of the ordinary. We've led basketball leagues for the entire community. We've done community art shows. And besides the things that we could do within our place, we also want to go where they are as well. One of the things that I've done is reached out to schools in the community and try to find out if we could do school assemblies. And they've been really open to it because many of them are in a very tight budget. And doing school assemblies, many times I'm speaking to 300, 400 kids at a time. And with that, of course, you can't talk about Jesus, but our topics are the power of words and the power of forgiveness. And I've literally have had altar calls as well.
Wow.
In the public school system. Of course, how I mentioned, you can't mention God, but no walls could hold back God's presence.
Right.
And
True.
Another thing I just want to touch on, I know it's limited time, but even in our approach with our youth ministry, how I mentioned I was a youth pastor for 15 years. We were meeting in one location, and something that was very obvious to me was that 85% of the kids would walk to where we were. So we sat back strategically, looking at a map, looking at our city, understanding the different neighborhoods, trying to feel and the different dynamics that's happening in our city. And we came to the conclusion that we wanted to duplicate our ministry and just really invade the different neighborhoods and meet in locations that would lessen, I know one of the previous speakers mentioned too, that you want the threshold to be less and them being able to be step into a location. We decided to partner with the schools as well. So we ended up meeting in a school, and we went from one location to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, and currently we have 7 locations throughout the city where we meet simultaneously in trying to impact those individual neighborhoods as well.
That's powerful. Man, you've mentioned so much, some rich stuff here, and one that hit me a little bit ago is kind of getting to the rhythm of the city. As you listen, as you participate in what they're doing, then they participate. There's that relationship that's building. So as you've been working towards living with people, joining in the rhythm of those in your community, how have you lived into this? I know it's messy. I mean, I know there's next to your church, there's some not so holy places, right?
Yeah, we have a go-go bar right next to the church.
Right. Yep. Yep, and so
and some people have entered our church. One of our last doors is right next to the go-go bar. They've entered our church thinking that we were part of the go-go bar. Yeah. We welcome them.
That's right. So you welcome them, right? You're like, oh,
yeah, no, of course, they're welcome.
That's right. So it's messy, and yet at the same time, in that messiness, we find that holiness in those relationships. So how have you embraced this in your community?
Well, definitely one of the things I always tell people is that we have to get our hands dirty, but make sure our hearts stay holy. And it's one of those things that we have to be involved. I'm very big advocate of living in your community, shopping, buying, going to the gym, letting them see you working out in the community, just being a part of everyday people, being a part of their lives. And through the journey, with everything that we've done, and I know that God led me to get involved in politics. I've been involved in politics for the last 14 years in my city. I started off running for the school board, and I was on the school board for around 3 years, and I've been a councilman for about 10 years already for my city. And it's messy. We could easily see with everything that's happening in the presidential election, it's a messy thing to get involved in politics. But we have to, because to me, it's a platform where you could shine brightly the light of God, and you could show everyone that even in that dirty realm that everyone sees it as, that you could live for Christ and shine brightly. And something that I've seen too is being in that place. It's opened so many opportunities to do good in the community, to talk to people, rub lives with people that I would have never imagined seeing. Sometimes I joke around and I say, as a pastor, if I would walk door to door in my city, like being a councilman, I'm in charge of 23,000 people are in my ward. If I would walk door to door just as a pastor, if they didn't know me as a councilman, there would be such a low percentage that would probably feel comfortable to open the door, let me come inside, sit in their living room, and speak into their lives. As a councilman, I have an open door pretty much in most of the places that I go to, and I count it an honor. And I walk in as a councilman, and while I'm there, God's glorified many times. We leave praying for people, leading them to Christ, and so many different things, just because you're able to be in their moment and not just be separated like within four walls. You're really in the trenches of what's happening in everyday lives, in their kitchen, in their living room, in their school setting, and in their community.
Wow, Carlos, I love this. And I want to pivot now to some questions from our online audience. Charlie Collins asked, who are the people in every community that the pastor must meet and interact with? As a politician, I mean, I'm not sure you like that term, but as involved in politics, I am sure that you have a unique perspective on this. So where do you stand on that?
I definitely, it's one of those things I always tell people too, that we have to influence those that have influence. And I think as a pastor, you should meet with everyone, every elected official, ask them to go out for coffee, get to know them. And it's one of those things that networking is key. So when it comes to elected officials, it's crucial. When it comes to other churches, it's crucial too. Like I know for ourselves, we've done so many things partnering with different churches, because the moment you don't see your church as being within four walls, and the moment you're able to align yourself with other churches that have the same view, you're not worried about that the dark side of leadership where you're trying to compete with other people or anything like that. You're focused on wanting to bring transformational change in the entire city. So many times I sit down with many like-minded pastors and trying to think of ways that we could transform the city together.
Cool.
So to answer your questions, definitely key leaders from the political realm, from the business realm, from the church realm. You just want to be able to know what's happening. And as you're connected, you'll have a better understanding of what the pulse is in your community, and you're able to know the felt needs that's happening as well.
Wow. Phenomenal. I want to ask you a question here. You talked about how you feel called to pastor a city. And I'm wondering, how do you empower your church? People come in and they're thinking, man, I just want to go to church here. I just want to worship and take communion and stuff. But then how do you turn and help them be empowered to go pastor the city, just like you do?
One of the things that we do is we keep that in the forefront. Just to give you a quick example, even two Sundays ago, one of our church leaders that is one of our members, he ended up coaching a community basketball league that's not a Christian league, just one in the community. And he ended up being there, building relationships with them. And this past Sunday, he invited all 10 families to our church. So he ended up bringing them to our church. We made sure we carved time within our regular service to honor all the players. They didn't win the championship, but we still gave them medals. We set a champion in their heart. They're a champion within their heart. We gave them medals. We threw a pizza party for them. And this was just a regular member within our church that caught the vision. And I think the vision has to be before them, and for them to realize that church isn't what you do on Sunday morning. It's living your life out among everyone else and shining brightly for Jesus.
And what a cool picture for others in your church to see. What great modeling. So thank you for that answer. Jeremy?
Carlos, we thank you for your time. I wish we had more time. I mean, I want to get deeper into some of the practices that you've had within your church and those rhythms. But thank you so much for being an example to many of us and hearing how you've actually, your heart is broken for the place that you're serving in, and you've engaged that, you've answered that, and you continue to live your life on mission. And so thank you for being that example and sharing with us today what your story looks like in Elizabeth, New Jersey. How can people, because I guarantee you people are going to have questions saying, how do you do this, and how do you transition a church into the community, and what issues have you faced, and how have you overcome those issues? How can people find you, get a hold of you if they have questions?
Definitely. And I just wanted to say it's a constant process. God has brought us a long way, but there's a long way before us. So you can definitely reach out to me on MySpace. I'm just kidding.
Oh, my goodness.
You can reach out to me on Facebook. I'm a big Facebook guy. I'm also on Twitter, Carlos Cedeno. You can reach me there. I'm not too big on Twitter. Facebook, I'm always there. So if you could find me, that would be great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you a lot and taking the time to be with us today.
Likewise. God bless you guys.
Thank you. Tony and Heath.